Okay, so the key to determining the correct problem of the client basically comes down to the key thing being is that we rely upon iteration. And what do I mean by iteration? Basically what I mean is the more times we listen to the client and then echo back to the client what we've heard, the more times the customer, client, stakeholder, whatever we want to call them, can correct us and thus we can have a better understanding. And this is really fundamental. So again, you're going to go talk to the customer. You are going to misunderstand. It's in the nature of human communication. So what do we try to do is we try to have a process by where we basically, we go talk to the customer. We go back, we try to figure out what did the customer mean by this and what is it that they really want. And then we go back to the customer in some shape or form with some version of our understanding and say, is this what you meant? And the customer goes, no, I really meant something more like this. All right, okay. And then you go back and you adjust and adapt and you go, now is this really what you want? And they go, well, actually that brings to mind something else. And so it's a back and forth process. And we've learned is that it's critical. If we have too few iteration cycles, basically the worst case scenario would be you talk to the customer, you go work for a super long time building what you think they want, and then at the end of all of that, you go back to the customer and say, is that what you wanted? And they go, no, you got it wrong. You've just wasted all that time. So this whole iteration process is really about sort of minimizing the amount of wasted work that we do. We have to work there incrementally to get the correct problem figured out for the client. And there are lots of other advantages to iteration, but this is one of the key things, and one of the key reasons is so that we actually build what they want us to build. All right, and so the basic process of the iteration that we follow, we're going to start with talking to the customer, as I said. So the basic process of an iteration. First step is you're going to go talk to the customer. Pretty sensible. The very first time that we talk to a customer, we often call that an interview. The later times we talk to the customer, we're not interviewing them. We're in a process of feedback and things like that. Two, after we talk to the customer, we go and we write user stories, and we'll talk more what user stories are. And the other great tool that we use is we use user story map. All right, and we also create low fidelity or lo-fi mockups. I mean, you could create high fidelity mockups. The problem is it's just really expensive to do high fidelity, and it actually doesn't work that well with customers for feedback. Customers get their expectations too high. It's better to work at these low fidelity. And again, we'll talk more about what we mean by this. And four, to deliver working software. So items 2, 3, and 4, these are all things the customer gives us feedback on. So we write these stories in the user story map, and we show and we share them, and we talk with the customer about them. Is this what you meant, basically? And the answer is yes and no. And they help us refine our understanding. The low fidelity mockups as well. Is if we built it like this, if the application looked like this, what was this? Would this work for you? Does this make sense? And then finally, though, yeah, if we actually build what we think after these discussions, and we show them, and they try to use it, absolutely, they're going to really be able to say yes, no, change this, and so forth and so on. Now, I said again, we don't want to invest tons of work here and have it be wasted. So that's part of one of the reasons we do this. Is these are much lower cost, and it helps us make sure that we're really kind of when we spend our time building the software, we don't waste our time. We'll still make mistakes. We'll still do the wrong things. And so what we end up doing is, again, we're going to repeat this process. So we're going to repeat this thing with a cycle time. So each iteration of 1 to 4 weeks. Okay. Each iteration refines the existing software and adds new functionality until done. And so basically, we work to understand, we write some software for them, and then we keep repeating this process. And so refines, this means, what we built for you is not quite what you wanted. So we might have to tweak and change some of the things that we actually built. Okay. And then as well, we also have some extra time in the iteration then to move on to new functionality if they want. And we'll talk about this overall thing. And so this is the general idea. This becomes very explicit in Scrum with actually having the iterations, we'll call them sprints. But yeah, this is what people have found in software to be quite critical to being able to solve a customer's actual problem, and to do it in an efficient manner so that we don't waste huge amounts of time building the wrong software.